Last fall, we announced the testing of more than 6,600 rape kits or sexual assault evidence kits dating back to the 1980s, and that we had completed the job. That was a proud moment for the city and a proud moment for the new Houston Forensic Science Center. But it was just one more step in a very long process. As I just said, these sexual assault kits dated back to the 1980s. So we had decades of accumulation of the kits. The first step was identifying the problem. The next step was identifying solutions to the problem. The next step was finding funding to tackle the problems. And then we needed to execute. We've taken another step forward on that execution. The tedious job of entering all relevant, usable data obtained into the National DNA Database known as CODIS has now been completed on all those backlog DNA samples. Today, we are able to announce that this next milestone has been completed, and as a result, all cases that yielded results and have now been entered into CODIS and therefore yield CODIS hits can be reviewed by HPD and the Harris County District Attorney's Office for possible prosecution. I know this milestone is of special importance to the rape survivors and their families and friends because it means their cases are receiving the attention they should have years ago. If there is a chance of prosecution in a case that has languished, or new cases that are uncovered, that prosecution will happen. It is significant that the city of Houston is among the first cities in the country to completely eliminate its backlog of untested sexual assault kits. Because remember, this is not a Houston problem, this is not a Texas problem, this is a nationwide issue that built up over years and years. We approached this project with determination, taking it step by step and never retreating from the commitment made to the survivors of this terrible crime. The approach wasn't inexpensive. It's cost a total of nearly $6 million to reach this point. And that was funded through a combination of grants and general fund dollars for the city of Houston. But it wasn't just about the testing. This has also led to improvements in our investigation and prosecution of rapes, and also led to new ways to keep victims engaged to better achieve judicial outcomes. It's a more victim-centered approach. The Houston Forensic Science Center no longer waits for police to request testing of a sexual assault kit. Instead, the crime lab picks up these kits weekly from HPD, the property room at HPD, and automatically tests everything. There is a justice advocate embedded in HPD's Special Victims Division who acts as a liaison between investigators and victims. The Houston Area Women's Center provides a full-time counselor to help survivors maneuver through the law enforcement process. And I know that's something that is of particular note to Councilmember Cohen for her long service with the Houston Area Women's Center. And police and prosecutors have changed how they interview victims. Police and prosecutors have also undergone training to better understand the impact this trauma has on victims. What we're doing in Houston is serving as a model for other cities across the nation. I'm proud to know that when I leave office at the end of the year, this is one problem, one long-standing problem that has been solved. But I want to remind everybody that While we tackled a longstanding problem of untested sexual assault kits, the crime of sexual assault continues to be one that confronts women and men, but women in all walks of life and at all ages. And it's one that we will continue to take seriously. We will investigate as aggressively as we possibly can and work hand in hand with the district attorney's office to make sure that these crimes are effectively prosecuted. We can never erase the fact that these evidence kits sat untested on property room shelves across the nation for many, many years, but we can move forward together in a way that makes us all proud. I'm now going to introduce Irma Rios, as I said earlier, the director of the Forensic Analysis Division of the Houston Forensic Science Center. Irma Rios.
Good morning. In 2011, when we embarked on this journey, we had 6,663 untested rape kits in the property room. Today, we have 0. This was an extraordinary project that has had enormous impact on sexual assault victims. Our analysts spent hours reviewing these cases to ensure that detail was not missed and that victims who had chosen to report this historically underreported crime would be treated with respect and have their chance for justice and closure. In addition, the Houston Forensic Science Center has worked with its partners to help ensure better responses in the future. We are proud of this project and its outcomes, but we could not have done this alone. The team has come around this issue and it has been crucial that we get this work done. And they made long-term changes to guarantee future victims a better response from the justice system. We have to thank Mayor Anise Parker for her vision and support in this project and for choosing to put forward $2.2 million to help test all the kits. HPD and the district attorney for all their hard work and support, and the National Institute of Justice for the grant funding that they provided. Houston Area Women's Center, the researchers at the University of Texas and Sam Houston State University who worked on our project, and the sexual assault nurse examiners from Memorial Hermann Hospital and the Harris Health System. All these people helped create not only the holistic approach we took to the problem, but also the holistic response. Sending out 6,663 rape kits to be tested was only the first step. When those kits were returned to the lab, they needed to be reviewed comprehensively so that that data could be entered into CODIS, the Combined DNA Index System. Those reviews took an average of 2 hours. The Houston Forensic Science analysts reviewed more than 3,030 kits that had DNA evidence. More than 2,300 DNA profiles were entered into CODIS, resulting in 850 CODIS hits. And all that information is now in the hands of the Houston Police Department. Thank you all for your hard work. This had made us a model for the nation on an important issue that touches nearly every town and city in the country. Would like to turn it over to Captain Evans with the Houston Police Department.
Morning. We would like to congratulate our partner, the Houston Forensic Science Center, on the milestone achievement of completing the technical review of these previously untested sexual assault kits. Once the sexual assault kit testing and technical review are complete, those results are made available to the Houston Police Department, specifically investigators assigned to the Special Victims Division. It is our responsibility to review this information and determine if it can further assist us in investigating each case. The investigative follow-up is a lengthy process and will still continue for some time. We have a team of investigators dedicated to this effort to investigate each case as thoroughly as possible. HPD is proud to be a part of the multidisciplinary team dedicated to improving our city's response to sexual assault victims. As a result of the participation in this project team, the Houston Police Department has developed a victim-centered approach to these investigations. A victim-centered approach is a systemic focus on the needs and concerns of a sexual assault victim and ensures the compassionate and sensitive delivery of services in a non-judgmental manner. This dedication extends to survivors with current open cases, as well as survivors whose sexual assault were a part of the backlog. We are dedicated to seeking justice for our victims and the community. One of our biggest challenges in law enforcement is recontacting our victims. The Houston Police Department created the Sexual Assault Information Line to allow victims to contact us to obtain information about their case. I would like to urge anyone who was a victim of sexual assault and reported it to the Houston Police Department to please call our Sexual Assault Information Line, and we will have someone get in touch with you just as soon as possible. That phone number is 713-308-1400, or you can email us at sainfo@houstonpolice.org. I would now like to turn over the mic to Harris County District Attorney Devin Anderson.
Thank you. Good morning. The Harris County District Attorney's Office is proud to be a part of this process. And just a few blocks away, our prosecutors continue to seek justice in these cases that have been brought to us over the past year. We would like to thank the City of Houston for their leadership on this issue. They made the decision to test all the rape kits, even those where the statute of limitations bars prosecution. This is important because for victims of those cases, they deserve closure just as much as any other victim, and it provides us important information that we may can use later in parole proceedings or punishment proceedings. To date, we have filed 29 charges. 7 of those cases have been disposed of. The rest are still pending. When our office started to receive these cases, we knew that prosecutors were going to be overwhelmed. We sent out an email asking for help, and within a couple of hours, over a dozen senior prosecutors volunteered to work on these cases. These are people who are passionate about seeking justice for these victims who have had to wait for so long. I want to tell them I'm proud of them, and I thank them for going above and beyond the call of duty in this important situation. I'm also happy to report that we have had some success on these cases. We've received a 40-year sentence on one case and a 45-year sentence on another. Now that the testing of these kits is complete, we know that it's up to us to finish the job and to seek justice for these victims. The ball is in our court, and we will do our best to put the people who are responsible for these heinous crimes behind bars for as long as possible. Thanks.
Okay, are there questions?
What's the city going to do to make sure we don't get in this situation?
That's an excellent question, and that's part of the reason that we made the decision to separate the Houston Forensic Science Center into an independent facility with its own governing board and director, rather than having it as a sort of subset of the Houston Police Department. While the Houston Forensic Science Center is currently still housed in the Houston Police Department building, as you all know, we are working to find a new headquarters facility for the police department, and at that time, it would be our intention to work with the Forensic Science Center so it could independently locate, and the physical separation will be complete. But they are an independent entity, and in order for them to both fulfill their contract with the city of Houston, they have to meet standards of testing of evidence. And my understanding is that the Houston Forensic Science Center, and Ms. Rios can correct me, also is seeking clients outside the city of Houston, and so they'll all have performance standards to meet.
Has there been a theme or a lesson so far for you guys in terms of why these specific kits went untested, and how do you use that moving forward?
we've had this conversation before, and there are multiple reasons why they weren't tested. And the simplest reason is that many of these kits date back to the early days of DNA testing, when it wasn't common, it was extremely expensive, and most of the detectives assigned used their own tried and true methods to solve the crimes. The other was a decision made that when it was a known assailant, you didn't need the DNA in order to determine who the assailant was, that there was, again, a decision not to take on the expense of the testing, and I'm sure D.A. Anderson could talk about some other reasons, but I want to be clear, it was never that they were ignored, but there were decisions made based on the technology at the time, based on the cost, and those decisions were amplified over the years, and as DNA testing became more common and less expensive, no one went back and made the decision to go back and test, because as we know, particularly with a crime such as rape, a lot of these perpetrators do it over and over again, and the gradual realization came that there may be valuable information that might not have been determinative on those particular cases, but it could have an impact on others. And I don't know if anybody wants to add to that. Okay.
Well, I guess an interesting question then. Which of these, how many cases were discovered where you, D.A. Anderson, you talked about 29 charges filed. Were any of these charges filed against sexual assailants who had committed crimes after the rape kits?
We have had those situations, yes.
How many of those have you had?
I don't know off the top of my head. I can get that for you in just a few minutes, because our chief is here of the special crimes victim.
But we're talking about sexual assailants who might have been prosecuted had these rape kits been processed in a timely fashion. Am I correct about that?
Well, that's possible, but you have to remember, too, that the technology was completely different, and a larger sample was required, so a lot of these kits couldn't be tested anyway. Now the technology is better, and as the mayor just said, it's a lot cheaper, so we can test all of them. But yes, it did happen, unfortunately, and we are eagerly looking forward to prosecuting those rapists, those repeat rapists.
District Attorney Anderson, you referred to some of those cases of the 6,000 will not result in prosecutions. Is that because of the statute of limitations? And if so, is there a solid number or an estimation as to how many cases we're looking at?
No, I can get the numbers for you as far as the statute of limitations goes, because it was 10 years for a long time. Now, if you don't know the DNA of a person, of a suspect, then you don't know who the suspect is, it's a lifetime statute of limitations. So we have been barred from prosecuting a lot of the cases, but there's other reasons too, like the defendant is dead, or you get a CODIS hit and we can't find the victim. There's a million different scenarios. I'm hoping, and I'm pretty sure we're going to get more charges, because